Let's jump to the story from Fox News and get an update on this story. Rep. Luna planning to force vote to hold Garland in inherent contempt for refusal to hand over Biden her tapes. Republican Congresswoman said Sunday she expects the measure to pass. Now, she's not actually looking for the sergeant-at-arms to make the arrest, which I think should happen, but she wants to fine him $10,000 per day. But Rep. Burchett, you're there. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I was talking to Luna on the drive over, actually. She and I are me and her and her husband and baby Henry are pretty close. And we talk about this all the time. And I was at the press conference, first one, and we were going to have a press conference in the morning, but we think we've kind of overdone the press conference. I think Luna is under the impression that she just needs to move the bill forward. But you got to realize a lot in our leadership in those circles do not want her to do that. They feel like she's pulling something from, the president and with the debate victory. But I keep saying, this thing is a moving target, and it's always, and you need to add on. If we've got things that they've done wrong, we need to expose them. We need to bring them forward. That's what we're here for. We've got 22 legislative days left, and if we spend all our time naming post offices, that is an issue. And as I told the leadership, I have a serious piece of legislation dealing with genetics and how the Chinese are stealing our genome, literally, and are developing biological entities to come after us. And, I can't even get it to move. And I told our leadership, I said, these dadgum post offices will name themselves. The one thing they have on us is we're not doing meaningful legislation. This is meaningful legislation. Let's pass it, send it over to Schumer. We ought to pass H.R. 2 every week. Just change it a little bit, send it back over to them, make it stronger. Border security, that's the issue. And that will be in the news every week.
Or at the very least, subpoenas.
100%. Yeah, bring them in. And let's enforce the law. Let's show America that this Justice Department is inept and corrupt.
I think my view is, unfortunately, a bit more dismal pertaining to what we're seeing with Congress. We'll get into the SAVE Act in a little bit. But even if, the SAVE Act, right, proving you're a citizen if you're going to vote, even if it passes the House, it doesn't go anywhere in the Senate because Democrats won't allow it to. And even if it goes to Biden, he vetoes it, doesn't go anywhere. Now we're looking at Merrick Garland, who has defied congressional authority. The DOJ is refusing to enforce the law as it's supposed to be, and nothing will be done about it. So while Steve Bannon is in prison and Peter Navarro is in prison for defying congressional authority, Republicans get nothing done. And it is always seemingly this way. I mean, probably most conservatives will tell you it's been this way for decades. But at least for the past decade, every single time an opportunity comes up, the Republicans say, no, slow down there. We better not. And then nothing happens. We're looking at Merrick Garland, who is engaged in a criminal activity, verifiably, easily provable. He defied congressional authority, a co-equal branch of the government, challenging and trying to hold the executive branch to account. And the leadership for the Republicans in Congress are like, I want to see the sergeant-at-arms arrest Merrick Garland. If Steve Bannon's going to be in jail, I'm not talking about revenge or retribution. I'm talking about equality justice under the law.
Well, and the language is so similar. You have Merrick Garland saying that he can't turn over her tapes because of executive privilege. Well, that's why Bannon couldn't give up his communication with Trump. It's the exact same thing. You have Garland saying, that he can't give up the tapes now because he can't turn it over because that would chill the ability of the Department of Justice to conduct investigations in the future. And you had Luna in her conference just before the break saying, if our subpoenas are toothless, then we have absolutely no power. So it's like the same language.
The J6 committee had tons of power.
Yeah.
Forcing people to testify and threatening them with prison over this.
And in prison, and now they're in prison. I mean, Navarro was in prison, Bannon's in prison, know.
But House Republicans' position is basically, we don't want this to be in the news cycle, and we would rather focus on whatever's going on with Biden.
That's exactly right. They do not want to take anything away from the debate and the debacle. And of course, with this, they're telling, and the spin, of course, is that, well, it's just going to prove what we already know, what we saw on the debate screen, that Biden is inept. But the point is the defiance of the law. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily what's on that. I think what it's going to show, I think the reason they're laying down on the train tracks, I think it's going to show just how inept he is, and that he's got either attorneys or advisors in there in the meeting telling him what to say. And also, I think some of the things could have been left out from the transcripts. That's what I think. There's a lot of that.
Didn't they
in
already
there.
say that the transcripts were edited?
Redacted.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
I mean, I think to a certain extent, proving what we already know.
And that's a lot, and that's illegal too.
That's illegal too.
Yeah, completely.
And
yes,
you
ma'am.
have also the FBI tampered with the Mar-a-Lago seized evidence.
Yeah, with the cover letters.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think to a certain
And the order
proving
of
what we already know is kind of key right now. I mean, all of the conservatives that I know were like, yes, there is something wrong with Biden. He seems different. He's not performing as well. But having it on stage for everyone to see seems to have had a really big effect on independent and more progressive voters. I mean, I think to a certain extent, the same thing is the case with seeing Merrick Garland face the same kind of consequences of Steve Bannon for allegedly committing, what is being told to us is a crime. If we have to answer this question of executive privilege, we should do that, or they should have to treat their players the same way they treat ours.
So in 2020, on May 29th, thousands of far leftists in D.C. ripped down the barricades around the White House, firebombed the White House grounds, torching a guard post, and set fire to St. John's Church. The photo, the aerial shot of D.C. shows smoke rising up around the White House.
It was shocking to watch that.
Shocking to watch, and the Republicans did nothing. Mm-hmm. So one of the challenges I see is
our former leadership. Yeah.
I can certainly understand this argument where it's like, well, no, hold on. We're winning politically because Biden's fumbling. Yeah, I'm sorry. I look at the media and I'm like, they're doing that on purpose. They intentionally did this. You're never going to convince me that in 2020, when Atlantic wrote, "Stay alive, Joe Biden. Democrats need little more from you than your corporeal presence." They wrote that. They were concerned in 2020 the man was going to die. He was campaigning from his basement. His health concerns have been around since before he got elected in 2020. Now they're saying, oh, we had no idea this was happening. And the Republican leadership saying this is a good thing for us, going along exactly with the Democrats' plan and their allies in media with their plan. What I see is a lot of people are concerned that after the 2020 insurrection from the far left at the White House, where they forced the president into an emergency bunker and tried to burn down a historic church, Republicans did nothing. There was no Summer of Love Commission. The worst riots this country had seen in 5 decades. Oh, you got me. The worst riots we've seen in 5 decades, and nothing was done. Not a thing. I said, where's the 529 Commission? Why aren't Republicans creating a commission to force people to testify as to why all of these law enforcement across the country stood down and allowed this to happen? Why was the president forced into a bunker? Why isn't the mayor of D.C., Nancy Pelosi, or anyone else involved in this jurisdiction? Why are they not being called to answer these questions the way Don Jr. was, or Steve Bannon was, or Peter Navarro was? Why is Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon now in prison over this? And once again, the Republicans are like, we'll do nothing. For me, it's hard to say beyond the Democrats are bad. Why should people vote Republican down ticket? Now, Donald Trump is a bit more fierce, people like that. But congressional Republicans, they earn very, very little. They never get the job done. There's a small handful that we cheer for and that we respect. And when Rep. Luna says, this is the order of operations, right? We said, here's a subpoena. They denied it. We said, you're in contempt. They say, so what? We say criminal referral. They say, so what? We say inherent contempt. And now leadership is saying, nah, we don't want to do that. So nothing gets done. Mm-hmm. I have very little confidence that if the Republicans win anything in November, anything gets done. And you had a lot of prominent personalities in the midterm saying, even if Republicans win, they will do nothing. And while we have seen some stuff from a small handful, like I've mentioned, we like what Luna's doing and Matt Gaetz as well. We are not seeing anything near the level of what Democrats did with the J6 committee. You had Raskin go before this committee and broadcast on television that I personally was advocating for people to go down on January 6th, which is a fabrication and outright lie. Mm-hmm. This guy is going on and lying about me. And I say to the Republicans, hey, can any of you do anything? And they say, no. So the challenge now is we hear this every time. In the midterms, why did Republicans barely win a majority? Well, unfortunately, the narrative is, and the reason why the Libertarian Party has so many right-leaning individuals is because even if Republicans win, they're not going to do it.
Same reason that in England and France that the conservatives were being thrown out in droves because they ran on it and they didn't produce. I can't argue with anything you said. Going back to Luna's original proposal, though, why we need to move forward with that. Americans want their pizzas in 30 minutes or less, and that's about our attention span. And we need to. This will not carry us to the convention. This will not carry us to the election. We need to keep piling on because there's so much out there, so much corruption, and we just go ahead. I
was going to say that's why you're in office, to take action.
Right. And here's what happens with these people. There's that stupid fly. Is it a fly or you think it's a drone?
CIA
Being
drone.
bugged for real.
It's one of those green flies, so they're extra aggressive.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
I don't know. Anyway, we got
So
horse
the green
flies.
ones
and
are extra aggressive.
they'll come at you in the barn. They're just assigned to you once you walk in. But Republicans are gutless. Here's what they do. They go home. They throw the red meat out the Reagan Day or the Lincoln Day dinners or the MAGA dinners now. And they say, this is what we got to do. We got, Nancy Pelosi, she's making 60% return. I mean, there's people making 300% return on their stock. Go to the Wales site and look it up.
Unusual Wales.
Yeah. And she's just kind of right in the middle. And, I mean, there's Republicans that are doing that, and there's Democrats, and it's all just feeding at the trough. I manage my stockbroker manages my $6,000 fund that I have very well, and that's about it. But anyway, we continue down this path, and then we come back to D.C., and what do? We vote us down the river every dadgum time. You get a 3,000-page bill. You read to page 32. Oh, that takes care of all my projects back home, and I grease a few lobbyists on K Street or whoever my wife and or girlfriend would work for, and the whole program. My daughter works for this firm. We're going to take care of them. And then they quit. And that's why we're $32 trillion in debt. We had $1 trillion every 100 days, and we failed to address it. We keep kicking the can down the road. We say, when we get the power, we're going to do this. Well, guess what? We got the power now, and we're not following through.
Is it likely to pass that Merrick Garland will be fined?
I think it's a toss-up.
I feel like it only takes a handful of defectors.
I just take 2 or 3, and then and you got to look at the numbers too. If there's Thomas Massey, his lovely wife just passed away, and Brian Mass' daddy died, so those 2 are gone. I mean, they're not here, and it just life happens. Somebody's going to get sick. Somebody's going to happen. So we're 3 or 4 people in the majority. Somebody forgets to come vote or something, or they're hung over in their office or whatever. I mean, there's 435 literally.
And Republicans have a majority by 4 seats or something.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
I mean, it's extremely narrow. I remember this was happening with the Mayorkas impeachment vote, that there were, 3 people who were adamantly against voting for the impeachment. And on the day of the first vote, a couple people who were in favor couldn't be there. I think maybe Andy Biggs, I can't remember who. So that the day that they could come back and vote, it changed things. Not that it went anywhere in the Senate, but it's such a narrow margin that really you need a lot of consensus to get things through. Does the Republican Party the Republicans in the House tend to be cooperative, or do you feel like there's a big division between them?
There's a lot of division, and Speaker Johnson has to take into consideration just every day. He could go to the floor and we could lose. He would lose the speakership, literally.
I mean, you famously got checked by Kevin McCarthy during the last speakership battle, so I always felt like there was some kind of contention there. But
I voted him out. I was the one that voted him out. I guess there was.
Yeah, but he really did I don't know what happened, but it looked like he kind of
love that so much.
Yeah, NPR was the ones who reported that, actually, the lady from NPR. She's a very nice little lady, and I know they're liberal, but she's always standing there with her little tape recorder and her mic, and I always want to make sure she gets, because when they talk to me, she was sort of off to the side, and and everybody knows her. And so I was talking to her, and then that happened. And I remember she said, "I've never seen that happen before." And I was like, what the heck?
And he denied it, right?
Yeah, because I fell right into her. And
he said, maybe we bumped elbows.
Well, he said we didn't. And then he said, well, it's a tight hall. And then maybe we touched elbows. And then, by then it was out of control, what was going on.
A lot of people were coming down on Matt Gaetz. I think what you guys did in voting against him was the right move. I love that
100% the right move,
and it burned $1 billion in IOUs for these lobbyists and these corporations, and that feels good.
Well, and also you got to remember, we had gone home a month before the big budget vote, so all we did was they came back a week to decide that. And, we should have been there a month working that out. We haven't passed a budget in over 30 years.
Wow.
And, just imagine your business, your church, your synagogue, your charity or whatever didn't have a budget. It's mind-boggling. And that's what we do. We pass these continued resolutions. And so what that does, it continues the bad policies before and loads up your junk. We have departments and projects and things that aren't even there anymore, Tim, and they still get funded. And where does that money go? Our Pentagon can't account for over $500 billion in assets. Never passed an audit. Yet what do we do to punish them? 20, 40 new billion dollars. The war pimps at the Pentagon are going to get theirs no matter what. And
Yep.
you look at what happened when I voted against every dollar going to Ukraine, and dadgum, when they gave them our missile defense system, what did we have to do? We had to, by rule, and we should have, replenished ours. And guess who owned stock in that? Members of both parties that served on that committee that knew about that ahead of time. And they ended up, magically, they just owned stock in that company. It's just, it never stops. It never stops. And the American public, though, needs to get out. They need to get out, and they need to start getting involved in these primaries and putting people in there that believe in this country.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.